Good evening, Laker Nation. Not the show, Laker fans. I'm your host, Joe Soro, and we're going to be here for the next 2 hours. A little makeup show from last night. Sorry, folks, for not being able to make it. I had prior obligations and obligations that also came about that didn't require me to be on last night. So I apologize for that, but we're going to make up a lot of time here on that. I am going with the red wine tonight. Now, I opened this up on the last show I did, and I drank a good amount. I think about maybe a quarter of it, if that. So tonight, I am going to drink the entire bottle. So we'll see if I have to leave for a second and get another bottle. So we have 2 hours for me to get a little tipsy here. So salute to everyone who's watching. Smooth. So tonight, the Lakers faced the Washington Wizards and were victorious in a, would it be considered a nail biter? Maybe? Nah. No, the Lakers were playing with the Wizards pretty much the whole night. They would go up 12, they'd go up 16, they'd go up 17, and then relinquish that lead to a 4, to a 3, to a 2. But I never thought that there would be in any way an issue with it being a win. So the Lakers won tonight 125 to 120 and finished off this 6-game road trip about as good as we could have hoped. 5-1. I was hoping for a 4-2 run, but 5-1 is obviously going to be welcomed here on this. And AD had a really good game. He had 35 points, 18 rebounds, was 15 of 15 from the free throw line. That was probably the most impressive stat of the night. Lakers didn't really shoot well from three. They got to the line a lot and made most of their free throws, obviously. But again, I don't know if you can really take anything away from it other than a win. The Washington Wizards have only won 15 games the entire year. So, yeah, no good there. No good. No bueno. But last night also helped, of course, beating Toronto, winning back-to-back games. I don't want to say, I know there's been some talk with Stone, Hansen, and Gerald about kind of where this team is, where they're going. I tried to stay online with what I'm seeing at the moment. And at the moment, whatever the future may hold here, I'm very happy with their performance. I'm very happy with what they're doing. They're 11 games over 500, which is, almost double what they were pretty much most of the year. They're playing well at the right time. It's just going to matter. What's going to matter now is, can they work a miracle here and get into at least an 8 seed? The 8 seed is going to be crucial because we're talking about 1 game versus 2 games. That's the question now. Can they do enough here in the next 5 games to get to that 8 seed? They're going to be on the road for the play-in. They'll be on the road, but if they win that game, they'll automatically get into the playoffs. And that's what I'm hoping for at this point. And I think it's a realistic option right now based off how they're playing and how things will play out with the teams ahead of them. Looking at the standings as of right now, the Pelicans did lose tonight. So that could be something interesting because they're 2 games behind the Pelicans in the loss column, and they still have to face the Pelicans. Now, Phoenix is another team that the Lakers own the tiebreaker, and they're behind them for 2 games. The issue is the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento Kings swept the Lakers this year, and being 2 games behind them in the loss column is technically 3 because you'd have to jump them by 1 game. And I just don't see making up 3 games in 5 games at this point with the Sacramento Kings. But there is a chance with Phoenix and the Pelicans, because the Pelicans they do face. They could catch up on one game there, and if the Pelicans lose 2 more games the rest of the way, and the Lakers, let's say, finish off with uh, with a 5-0 record the next 5 games, there's a really good shot that the Lakers could get the 7. So there's some things here that can happen. I just don't know if the Lakers are going to win the remaining 5 games. That's still kind of up in the air for me. But if they do, I think it's a very good shot that they're going to get the 8 seed, and there's a possibility they might get the 7, which means they would host that first play-in game, and that's a good thing. John, anything can happen? Yes, very true, John. Anything can happen, but the Lakers are making it happen. That's the important part. What's up, Daniel? That's the important part. That's what you need to support. The Lakers are winning, and they're winning where they weren't winning before. They weren't winning on the road. They weren't winning back-to-back games on the regular, and they have here in the last month or so on a consistent basis. Let's see. Magic Man has arrived, folks. Magic Man has arrived. Hello, Magic Man.
What's up, Joe?
I like the shirt. How you?
Always.
Salute to you. I opened up a bottle from the last show, so I'm gonna drink what now is almost halfway through. I'm gonna drink this whole bottle here tonight between now and 10 o'clock, and we're gonna have some fun tonight. So
Incredible, Joe. I just finished off a bottle of red about an hour ago.
So the inspiration was you drinking the red. So I'm gonna continue to drink the red and see where we go with this. Right now, I've been talking about the game tonight, kind of the Lakers on where they've been. I think some of the people in our circles here think that I might have crossed the Laker Tom threshold of positiveness. They haven't been hearing a lot of rants, and my retort to that is, why do you rant when you're not angry? See, I'm not just a ranter. When I'm happy, I don't rant. I'm cool sailing, which only adds to the point of there are times to do things, not just to do things. So the Lakers, while kind of playing half-ass a little bit tonight, which was totally expected, I didn't care, honestly. I didn't care if they had won by 1 game. I wouldn't have cared if they won by 1 point. I wouldn't have cared if they won in double overtime. I wouldn't have cared if they hit a last-second shot to win the game. All I cared about is them winning these last 2 games after their first 4 games, which is it went really, really well for they played as good as you can play at this time of year on the road, and the Lakers leave 5-1 on this road trip, which again, huge win.
Joe, it's actually a testament to how difficult and circuitous the Western Conference is here. Because if you go back a year, Joe, if the Lakers have the same record they have last year, they're in the 5th seed, and they're in the 9th seed right now. It just goes to show how competitive the West is. And all due respect to the Eastern Conference, but that first round is not going to compare to what the first round is going to be like in the Western Conference.
Very true. It's I think Z might have brought to our attention that the Lakers have played probably one of the more difficult schedules in the NBA. I think top 3 or top 4. So maybe we've been hard on them a little bit. I have noticed, and I know it's a little easy right now because there really isn't a choice. We haven't been hearing a lot about Darvin Ham's lineups. We're not hearing about Darvin Ham's rotation issues. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I think he just knows now that the starters are going to be the guys he has to ride. And the starters are going to have to do this all the way through. Once the season ends, it's likely going to mean that these guys are going to play 38 to 48 minutes the rest of the way. I do think that Taurean Prince has a role, but it's just not a game in and game out role where he's doing what he's capable of.
Yeah, we talked about this throughout the year, Joe, and I think maybe it's maybe it's finally compelled Darvin Ham to see it this way, but he is a very effective player. Sans 30 minutes. If you play him 25 to 28 minutes a game, he's very effective at what he can do. He can shoot the three, plays a little bit of tenacious defense, but you can't expect more from him than that. This is just who he is. And if you play him in his role, he's very effective and he can be an effective player.
It's not enough. Jackson Hayes has played better than I thought he would this year. So kudos to him, but he's not fundamentally sound enough and he's not consistent enough to be relied on. And it's going to get harder in the playoffs when they can key in on their assignments a little more. They can study a little more. It's a 4 to 7 game series. And Spencer Dinwiddie is that cagey veteran, but I think he might be on the downside of his career. He'll probably be out of the NBA in about 2 or 3 years at best, unless he gets on a title team where he can just kind of sit there and be a mentor of some of sorts. But this is kind of the NBA's wish, anyways. I don't think the NBA is going towards a stacked team anymore. You'd have to be hitting on the draft in the draft, especially late in the rounds and in the second round for you to have a team that has depth. Because if you're going to put supermax contracts on players, let's say you had two solid players, right? Like Boston does, and to some degree you can look at LeBron and AD. You're talking about two guys that are going to be making, well, not LeBron now, but these guys can make supermax money at the height of their talents. You have that, then what? What do you do in terms of filling out the roster? So I think you're going to start seeing more and more of teams being starter heavy and not having much depth unless they're able to find people that can play on a much easier salary setup. And of course, you hit in the draft, which is always a crapshoot in the NBA. It's very hard. It's only 2 rounds. If you have 2 picks, one will likely be okay, especially if you're picking late, and the other one usually doesn't work out.
Well, Joe, selfishly, I love seeing Spence as a Laker because, um, you've talked about your affection for Doc Rivers on his response to what happened to Kobe, and I feel the same way about Spence. I mean, he broke down. He he literally broke down. He was emotionally vulnerable for the entire world when that happened. And, he's the one who said, out of the blue, just out of the blue, right? When he was playing for the Brooklyn Nets, Kobe called them one night and told them, you're one of my favorite players in the NBA. And you don't need validation from the media or from the fans to know that you're an all-star. I know that you're an all-star. And that was a few years ago, but you know selfishly I'm glad Spence is a Laker because he made it his homage, Joe, from the area, from LA, to be a Laker and to rep that purple and gold for Kobe. And I don't think a lot of people truly understand what that means now, Joe, because I think as we go further on, there's going to be a lot more of these guys who don the purple and gold because of Kobe. I mean, Joe, you and I are old enough to remember when the media was, let's just say, kind of less than on Kobe's side. Kobe's selfish. Kobe takes 35, 40 shots a game. But really, what it was about was other guys saw the heart and soul that man played with. And he donned his blood every game for the purple and gold. And it means something more than just basketball. It's about repping who you are, what you're about, your blood, sweat, and tears. And that means more than the game. It's about who you are as a soul. And I don't think the media truly appreciated who Kobe Bryant was as a soul. They appreciated him as a basketball player, that's for sure. And there were criticisms that come with that. Always do, whether or not you're a CEO like Joe is, or you're a financial planner, or you're a plumber, or whatever you are in your field. But the fact that you appreciate a man for what he represents as himself. And I don't think a lot of people truly appreciate that, Joe. And I think that's why a lot of the rumors about Trey Young coming to the Lakers means more than that because, you know, we all know Gianna's favorite player was Trey Young. It's like dad, like Trey Young's coming to LA. We got to see him. All right, girl, going to LA then. Going to the crib. Gonna see Trey Young, and that means so much more than basketball, Joe. It means so much more. And again, I don't think the media and the fans in general truly appreciate what that means, but Spence does. And I'm glad he's a Laker and I'm rooting for him harder than ever.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, the Kobe thing and what um, I we've talked about it on the show on how the kiss ass chorus, not after he passed, it was after he retired. You started seeing more and more that Kobe, and I'm like, you guys
Yeah,
were dogging him the
like
whole time.
don't give flowers now. Like we remember you were trying to be sour on him. Like don't try and give him flowers now.
Yeah, it's been Kobe. I don't know if Kobe was mean to the media, but he was direct and short sometimes. And there were LA Times writers that would dog him because they were Shaq guys. I don't know if I want to name names. Jay Adande. And he was a prick.
He was.
He
He
always
was.
dogged on Kobe. And those who've dogged on Kobe, I the response was, if he passes more, if he does this more, if he does that more, I go, what do you want? What more do you want?
Yeah, you know it's interesting, Joe. I'll try and post it right now, but I remember Kurt Goldsberry. And shout out to Kurt because he's one of the best analysts we have in the game. He talked about the Kobe assist, and the Kobe assist is an intentionally missed shot because you know your front court has your back on the boards. Now with Andrew Bynum, Pau Gasol, and Lamar Odom, the Kobe assist became in vogue all of a sudden again. And you know, people think that Kobe was just a shot chucker and a ball hog. That was kind of the I'm gonna call it a false narrative. Kobe would see Bynum or Elo under the basket, and he would intentionally miss because he knew they would grab the board and they would have another shot at a possession. And possessions matter more in the playoffs than missed shots do. I don't care about missed shots in the playoffs. I care about possessions. That's what I care about. Because the more possessions I have, the more opportunities I know I got. And that was Kobe's game. Yeah, he would take bad shots every once in a while, no doubt about it. Everybody does. But the fact is that there's a difference between an intentional miss and just chucking it up. And again, that's something that the media just completely whitewashed. They whitewashed it, Joe. They never really appreciated Kobe's game for what it was.
Yeah, and no one's gonna buy into that. By the way, no one's gonna buy in that he missed them on purpose to get the rebound. I think that's not gonna fit their thoughts, even if it was true. What I find interesting about Kobe's career too is Robert Ory was a clutch player in Houston, right?
He's top 5 clutch in the
Okay,
playoffs all time. All time.
so I don't know if you can use him as a reason because he already kind of came in, but we weren't expecting Derek Fisher to be a clutch player. I
No.
saw Pau Gasol make a clutch shot in an important game. I saw Ron Artest make a couple of clutch, one that sealed the championship. So, what is the common denominator? How often do you see other players become clutch? Why is it so many when Kobe's on the team?
Amazing, right? Kobe
Is
misses a shot against OKC. Pau grabs the board and a
right?
putback. Kobe passes to Ron Artest. He makes a clutch 3 in Game 7 against the Celtics. Now, why did Kobe make that pass, ladies and gentlemen? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he trusted both of those guys to make the play when they needed them the most. And I go back to a 2009 2010 game against the Houston Rockets, Joe. This is Ron Artest's first game back against the Rockets that he formerly played against. Now, not to make too much about it, but I've told Joe and I've told Gerald and just about every Laker fan this. Ron Artest was signed, sealed, and delivered to be a Cav that year. It was all signed, sealed, and delivered pretty much. He was going to sign with the Cavs. He's going to try and help LeBron finally bring a title to the Cavs. But there was one hitch in that, Joe, and that is Kobe called him up and said, "I heard you're going to sign with the Cavs." He's like, "Yeah, brother. Like it's pretty much all signed, sealed. I'm going to sign with the Cavs." He's like, "No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're going to sign with the Lakers because we need that testiness on the court, brother. Because I love Trevor Ariza, but Trevor can't guard Paul Pierce, but I know you can."
And that's a great point.
And
That
that was it
that's a,
for Ron. He said it. He said it. That was he knew that with Pau, Kobe, Elo, it was it. Like that was it. He knew that he would win a title with the Lakers. He wasn't sure with the Cavs, Joe. He wasn't sure because it wasn't LeBron that he was worried about. It was everybody else. But he knew that Kobe was on the perimeter with them, and that was his brother. And like you said, he walked into that locker room after that Game 6 defeat, and he saw the pain in Kobe's face, and he wasn't going to allow that to happen again with his brother. So he's like, "All right." He told his agent, "We're not signing with the Cavs. We're signing with the Lakers."
and if the Lakers do not get Ron Artest in 2010, the Lakers lose to the Celtics in the finals. I have no doubt. Ron Artest contained Paul Pierce for 6 of the 7 games. If he contains them for 5 of the 7 games, the Lakers likely lose that series. That Celtics team was actually better than the '08 team, in my opinion. Even
I
though they were
agree.
even though they were a couple years older, I thought their a lot of times the belief once you win a title, the belief then becomes cemented in your mind, in your consciousness. That was the best Celtic team the Lakers faced during that time, by far and away. And the reason why they couldn't win it was because they had spent so much energy. Kevin Garnett had discussed how they could not move in Game 7. They couldn't do anything,
They were in
and
mud.
they
He
were
said
in
they
mud.
were in mud.
And Kobe, unfortunately, was stuck in the mud in a different way. In that he was so eager to win, he couldn't calm down. When I get asked what's the difference between Kobe and Jordan, I used to get that question a lot more than I do LeBron until LeBron went to
It's
his
this. It's
yeah.
this. Michael was able to keep streamlined. Yeah.
And his trainer even admitted to that. So when his trainer, Kobe and Michael had the same trainer. He said, when I told Michael that's enough, Michael's like, cool. Kobe's like, no, 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 I want more. I want more. Kobe was one of those guys that actually did overwork sometimes. And his obsessive compulsiveness sometimes was a drawback. But a lot of times the same thing that makes you great will kill you. It's just
Yeah,
that,
and you can't ask somebody to like that to pull back.
no,
Can't
no.
It's not part of their nature.
Mm-mm.
Same thing with my mother. You can't ask somebody to pull back when they're ferocious. It's not.
You can't. You can't ask a pit bull to simmer down. It's just you can't. The DNA, the mindset is to seek and destroy. I used to talk about Troy Polamalu in the same way. I said
100%.
I said Troy right around I'd say '05, '06, where he was just really Troy from '04 through 0 Troy from '04 to 2010 was as lightning magical as you could ever watch any football player be. I'm not saying that because he's a Steeler. I felt the same way watching Barry Sanders. He was a Detroit Lion. I never saw a player. I very rarely. I saw Randy Moss. I saw Barry Sanders, and I saw Troy Polamalu in the same mindset of what the hell are these guys? What kind of humans are these? Because I would watch them and see what they did, and I go, "What the hell is this?" Now, Troy, because of his style, I said, "Folks, you better wait. You better not wait. I mean, you better not wait because Troy's going to be gone soon." I go, "You cannot play the way Troy played and last." The fact
It's a
that he last,
supernova. It's a supernova,
he
Joe. It's
was
here and
he
it's gone.
yes he played as long as he did, which was a miracle, really. I thought he'd be done in 8, 9 years. Honestly, and that would have been fine by me. Two Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl appearances. I'd be like, look, Troy, you want to call it a career after 9 seasons? God bless you. Lynn Swan did the same thing. Played 9 seasons. Please stay healthy. Obviously, Barry Sanders lasted 10 years. Uh, just go out and make sure you're good for your family and your kids. Um, and that's just those Haley's comments are just they're rare. And looking at Kobe in the same way, even though but it's basketball, so you don't feel it as much because there is some longevity there. But when he busted his Achilles after all those years playing on high ankle sprains the next day, come on, did you really think that wasn't going to happen?
I know. I know. We were all fooling ourselves, right? Just fooling ourselves into
I never
thinking.
thought of it. That's how much I fooled myself. I never thought of it. At least I thought about it with Troy. At least I thought about it. I didn't think about it with Kobe. It was so normal. Oh, this guy's gonna
Because
play 20.
he punched in every day like it was nothing.
He was Cal Ripken with better talent. Imagine that, right? Cal Ripken is an Hall of Famer, but geez.
And it's amazing. Like we'll never really know because he's gone, and God bless him. He's up there. He's watching over everything now. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get that with LeBron. That he'll say, yeah, I played on high ankle sprains 150 days out of the year, and I'm pretty sure that it's the same deal with Kobe. I played on a high ankle sprain, 120, 150 days out of the year. Half the year you're playing with a high ankle sprain, and you're you're shooting 21 of 40 from the field, 38 points. You're getting to the free throw line about 17 times a game just to keep the Lakers in the game.
Well, you look at tonight's game. We played 36 minutes. We're what, the 76th 7 games into the season. He plays 36 minutes on the back end of a back-to-back, shoots 50% from the field, hits 85% from the free throw line, drops 25 points and 9 assists with 7 rebounds. I mean, what can you say in his 21st season?
So,
What can
Joe, we're getting some feedback here on the chat. Would you be willing to grow out the beard until the Lakers play their last game?
the problem with that stuff is I have a business to run, and there's a aesthetic that I need to have.
Yes, yes.
So I would say, trying to think here what I would do. Let me think about what I could do in terms of facial hair that would work. Maybe I'll grow a mustache,
Okay,
which would
all
make me
right.
look like a geezer, by the way. But I think everybody would get a kick out of it. So let me think about that one. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but let me think about that one.
But yeah, I mean, the Lakers have won 8 of 9 games. 8 of the last 9, they're still in the ninth seed. That's how competitive and how kill switch this Western Conference is that there's no room for error. There hasn't been room for error in the Western Conference, and Joe can reciprocate this in the last 25 years. That's how deep the Western Conference has gone the last 25 years. And again, all due respect to the West, but as far as the East goes, the last 25 years, it's been the Celtics, it's been the Bucks. The last 12, it's been the Sixers. In or out the last 15. But the fact of the matter is the Western Conference reigns supreme.
Yeah, if you look at the teams that, let's see here, the teams that have won a championship since 1999, basically since Jordan retired, is the Pistons.
Spurs.
No, I'm talking about the East. The
Oh, the East.
Pistons,
Pistons, the
Heat,
Celtics, the
Celtics,
Bucks.
the Bucks, the Cavs, and then Toronto. 6
That's
teams?
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had only 6 teams win in the East in the
Mm-hmm.
last 25 years. And then what are we looking at? So Spurs, Lakers, Mavericks, Golden State, Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much because a lot of the teams in the West end up winning 4, 5. So the Lakers have won 6 in that time.
Phoenix has gotten to the finals.
Phoenix should have won, and
Yeah.
they didn't. That was a heartbreaker for Chris Paul. So yeah, the Lakers, the Spurs, the Warriors. You have dynasties since 1999. You've had 3 dynasties: the Tim Duncan dynasty, the Shaq and Kobe dynasties, the Steph Clay and Draymond dynasty at the West, and then we could end up seeing a Denver one here if they end up winning this year. In the end, it's just what it is. It's just not. The East has not been able to really.
Joe, unless here's the thing. I think Celtics fans know this too. Unless Jason Tatum reaches an unconscionable level as the superstar, Joe, and we know that his icon is Kobe, and nobody's trying to compare Tatum to Kobe, but Tatum isn't a traditional superstar. He's a hot and cold superstar. He's not an AI. He's not a Kobe. He's not, I wouldn't even call him a Tim Duncan. He is a mid level superstar. He hasn't gone to that next level yet. He needs to go to that next level if the Celtics are to win a championship. Because Jaylen Brown is who he is, Joe. That's who Jaylen Brown is. unless Tatum can get to another level, the Celtics aren't winning a championship. They're not. And I have a feeling that when the playoffs roll around, you're not going to see that Jason Tatum, even if they get to a finals, Joe. And if that's the case, then it's lights out. It's the Nuggets, it's the Lakers, it's the Suns, it's whoever they end up playing are going to win.
So Jason Tatum, I think there was a statistic where he doesn't shoot well in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's pressure. I don't know if that's tired. It's difficult sometimes to have two perimeter players be your best players because all they do is shoot all game long. One of the things since we talked about Kobe and his shot selection, uh, everyone thinks that, oh well, he just shot 46 times, so that's why he scored this. I go, do you have any idea how hard it is to get your shot off the NBA? Like, do you really know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people talk out of their ass when it comes to that. It's hard to get your shot off, and on top of that, Kobe made a living getting his shot off with people in his face and still making. So Kobe wasn't an efficient player based by the stats. How the hell did he beat 24 50-win teams then if he's not efficient? This isn't a Shaq Kobe thing either. He won the same way he won without Shaq. That's the part where you can pretty much bury the talk. Most of the people who usually talk either didn't like the Lakers or Kobe or didn't watch those guys play. The comparisons between best ever and this and that also factor into the discussion because you have to have watched Jordan play to have that argument. If you didn't watch Jordan play, how are you going to argue that?
Yeah, 100%. And as detestable as we find him, Paul Pierce was clutch in the fourth quarter and overtime. As much as we revile the Boston Celtics, the last two clutch players the Boston Celtics have had in the playoffs are Larry Bird and Paul Pierce. Jason Tatum hasn't reached that level yet.
I wish he was clutch a little bit more in 2002.
Hmm.
This was before I was into the Celtic Laker thing, but I do remember when they had one of the best comebacks ever with him and Antoine Walker being the
Oh,
pillars there at that time.
oh,
They came back
that
in game three from a, I don't know what was 20 something on something
that
deficit.
was that was the guy. That
Yeah.
was the guy with Paul Pierce, and
Yes.
even Paul would admit today that he didn't end up holding up his end of the bargain there because yeah, Joe, that was the guy I thought if there was one guy you put beside Paul Pierce and it could potentially end up driving a knife into our three-peat, it was Antoine Walker.
I believe that the Lakers would have smoked them in a sweep, possibly five, but I think it would have been a sweep. And it would have been a better ending. It's always still a good ending. I don't care. A championship's a championship. It's a three-peat. I'm good with it. But man, how much better would it have been had they taken care of Boston in that three-peat? Kobe would have had two wins against the Celtics. There's so many scenarios you go into in your head of how things change history.
How do you think the Lakers would have done against that Milwaukee team because they swept us?
Well, the Orlando Magic swept the Lakers in '09. Matter of fact, I remember a statistic that year. The Lakers hadn't lost to anyone that year after the finals, of course, because I'm counting the playoffs. They hadn't lost a season series in '09. '09 is a very underrated team, by the way, folks. And I'll tell you why right now. And you're going to laugh also at the last thing I say. The Lakers didn't lose a series to any team in the NBA in 2009, factoring in the playoffs. So, what do I mean by that? The Orlando Magic swept the Lakers during the regular season, and the Lakers beat them in 5 games. So they ended up 4-3 against Orlando for that year, right?
Hmm.
Guess what team? One team beat them in a series in 2009. I think you could probably guess this right. We'll see if the panel sees it, knows what it is.
I think the big difference for me is that in that season, Big Dog was playing like a big dog.
Mhm.
And I think he might have ended up being the difference between a game five and a game seven. Because that team was real. Ray Allen, Sam Cassell, Lindsey Hunter.
Honestly, I don't think you're thinking about the '01 Milwaukee Bucks or '02.
That season, Joe, I mean, it was a flip of the coin because if Vince Carter hits a shot over Eric Snow and the Raptors take it to back home, who knows what happens. But it was a flip of the coin. The Bucks, the Raptors, or the Sixers. The Lakers could have ended up playing any one of those three teams in the finals. That's how
I
competitive.
don't think Milwaukee in '01 would have fared any different, honestly. I think
I agree. I agree. But that's how competitive it was in the East. That's the last time it was that cutthroat for that conference.
I'd say that Toronto Raptors second round, that was Vince Carter's best series as a Raptor, taking AI to 7, and then of course Milwaukee taking them to 7. But the Sixers were not that good of a
They
team.
were all flawed.
Yeah,
Let's just say
and
that.
what's weird to say is they had the MVP on that team, they had the Coach of the Year, they had the Defensive Player of the Year, and they had the Sixth Man of the Year.
They had the right team around AI, and they still all they could muster was a game against the Lakers. That's it.
A game that they shouldn't have even had, too. By the way, there was a play in overtime. The Lakers are up 5. The refs call some bogus offensive foul on Robert Ory away from the ball. I thought it was the biggest jerk off call. I can still see the play in my head when it happened. The Lakers had the ball up 5. Then what happened was they got the ball back because of that bogus foul. Philadelphia did. Then AI hit a 3, and then they were down 2. It totally changed the complexion of that overtime. We would have been able to see an undefeated playoff run, which again, I'm not complaining all the way, but it does suck to lose that way, right? The Lakers did return the favor by dropping them at home in 3 straight games. A lot of times I think about that. I'm like, man, that was really nice.
Well, it was
'Cause
also OT. Like it was also OT.
yeah,
It was 15-1 because of an OT game. Yeah.
right. And a lot of people like to, and even players, they like to say, "Oh, well, we were off for a week and a half. We were off for 2 weeks." I'm like, dude, you guys were up like 13, 14 points in the beginning of the game. What are you talking about? You guys are fine. Don't make excuses. Um, but it's looking back on those teams, looking back at the East, looking at Shaq and Kobe. Who's going to beat Shaq and Kobe when they're focused?
No
This
one.
whole no one.
No one.
By the way, '09, folks, Charlotte Bobcats
Swept us. Yeah.
swept us. The only
Yeah.
team in '09 that won a series against us. Imagine that. And there was two games that the Lakers lost on last second shots. One was Philly and one was Indiana that year. So they could have won 67 games that year and matched their 2000 record. Speaking of that, the Lakers had a chance to tie their 72 win total, and Mr. Jackson decided to not go after it, which
Mhm.
even pissed off Father Shaq, Philip Harrison, the Sarge. And I remember watching an interview about that. He's like, You could tell he wanted to say, "I'm the mother coach, man. What the hell you telling me what to do?" But anyways, there's Baron Davis's best series was '07 against Dallas when he was at Golden State. Baron Davis is a victim of bad teams for a
Yes.
career. If he had
Every like don't fool yourselves, everybody. Every great team wanted Baron Davis. Everybody wanted
Lakers
Baron
included,
Davis.
Lakers included, I don't know how many rumors of Baron Davis coming to LA I heard in that time. And
Mm,
I'm sure Baron was trying everything in his power to
yeah, Dan Gilbert would have rather had his kidney explode than to allow Baron Davis to be on that Miami Heat team, Joe. You know this as much as anybody. He would rather have his kidney like physically explode than to have given Baron Davis up to the Heat or the Lakers in that time period.
and one of the best verticals I've seen in game that I've ever seen, anyways.
And you know, um, like it or not, he's the reason why we have replay now because he ended the Orlando Magic's season and they wouldn't give him that shot.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give it to him. He it was good. Like it left his hand. You could you knew it would left his hand with time enough and the NBA Tim Donaghy still wouldn't let him have that shot. And Baron Davis OT shot against the Magic when he was with the Hornets is why we have replayed to this day.
And replay has gotten worse since then, by the way. I think tonight they spent maybe 10 minutes of actual time replaying.
Was Scott Foster reffing tonight?
Uh-uh.
Okay.
But I found it hilarious that LeBron got called for a flagrant one, moving his elbow to someone's head, yet he gets hit in the head harder, and that was just a two shot free throw.
Mhm.
I'm not going to sit here and talk about that. I don't really want to. I am excited that the Lakers won tonight. I'm excited that they won last night. I'm excited about the road trip and how well they played. I know the teams they played were substandard, but that's not the point. The point is they won the games. They won them on the road, and they traveled in these places. This wasn't some, oh well, they're playing in L.A. At home and then playing the Clippers at home. You know, this was Toronto, Washington. I mean, these are back-to-back games on top of it. They were focused enough to take care of business, and hopefully they were able to preserve some things for themselves. Again, Brooklyn, Toronto, Washington.
We
Before then,
need this game against Cleveland. Of course, the schedule makers have to give Cleveland a back to back, but of course, we get the front end of it. Like the Clippers get the Cavs on the back end of a back to back, but we need that game against Cleveland, Joe. We really do.
they need every game here if they want to get that 8. And right now, Phoenix is destroying Cleveland by
Mhm.
23.
Figure
We did get a little bit of help from
the
uh,
Magic
the
tonight. I
Magic
think
tonight because I
they
think
beat the
that's
Pelicans.
actually a doable. That's a doable jump, which is New
Mhm.
Orleans, because right now they're 2 games behind New Orleans in the loss column. If New Orleans loses one more game before the Lakers and the Lakers win out, because the Lakers do play New Orleans at the end of the year, so that last game could mean an 8 spot.
Mhm.
So if the Lakers win the rest of their games and New Orleans loses one more game, the Lakers would own the tiebreaker, because that would mean the Lakers win 3 out of 4 this year against New Orleans, and the Lakers will jump up to 8, where Sacramento and Phoenix can do what they do there. Now, Phoenix can somehow finally hit the skids on their schedule here a little bit and lose a couple in a row. We own the tiebreaker against them as well. They could jump to 7. 7 is likely the only realistic number, because Sacramento would have to lose almost all their games for them to jump them and go to the 6. there's a shot, but it's gonna some teams are better than others because again the Lakers will control their destiny, being that they will play New Orleans.
One truism we know, Joe, is that more so than the NBA, than Major League Baseball, is that no team goes 2 seasons without an injury problem. It's not fallible. It's not a fallible issue that you go 2 seasons injury free. You don't get that kind of karma in any sport, more rather than basketball or baseball. And the Kings are an example of this. They had almost the perfect season that they had to have last year, and they ended up with the sixth seed, third seed, excuse me. And now they're finding out that, yeah, when you get that injury hitch, it's hard, man. It's hard to sustain that kind of energy, and more more so than any other team, Joe. Herder and Monk are their lifeblood. They are. They changed the way the Kings play basketball, and having those two guys have injury problems, and they're going to be without Herder. So, but more so than that, the Kings rely on those two guys to be their bread and butter, their peanut butter, and losing them hurts them a lot. And I've said this to Joe, I've said it to other people. I think the Kings are vulnerable now more than ever because those two guys are hurt. But like Joe said, you gotta play perfect just to jump them because even with those two guys hurt, they beat the Clips last night. So you gotta find a way to muster up some some metal here and jump them because the sixth seed is right there for the Lakers if they want it. If they can go on a run here, they can grab the sixth seed. It's just a matter of whether or not things turn around for them. Because I mean, for gosh sakes, I mean, winning 8 of 9, you haven't moved an inch in the West right now, even playing that well. But you know what? It doesn't matter what everybody else does. If you're playing your best basketball or your best hockey at this point in time, nobody wants to play you. And if the Lakers continue on this run, Joe, nobody wants to play the Lakers in the first round if they get there. Nobody. I don't care if they're the Thunder, if you're the Nuggets. I don't care if you're the Wolves. You don't want to play the Lakers if they've won 16 of 20 and you get them in the first round.
I will say this: there is some intrigue if the Lakers should play uh, Sacramento in the play-in.
Hmm.
It would
Hmm.
likely be a 7-8 setup,
Mm-hmm.
and New Orleans and Phoenix would have to win enough to where they can go where they're going. But I gotta admit, I would love to see Sacramento in the play-in at this point.
I would too.
Going to Sacramento and
Oh,
beating them there
oh,
after what they did this year,
oh. I would love that.
I think that would be poetic, wouldn't it?
I would love that. I would love that.
The Lakers would get the seventh seed at that point, which looks like it's pointing towards either Minnesota or Oklahoma City because I still think Denver's going to get the one seed. So this is what how I'm thinking this should play out. The Lakers need to focus on getting the 8 seed. I believe 100% if they win the next 5 games, they'll get the 8 seed. And who they play in that round is up for debate. But I would love for them to play Sacramento and get that jump start a little bit. They beat Sacramento in Sacramento to advance. Then then you're looking at likely the Lakers playing either Oklahoma City or Minnesota. And then we're talking about I still think Karl Anthony Towns is not playing in the first round. So you would have an interesting series there with Minnesota, and then of course Oklahoma City being as young as they are, there's some and experience deficiencies there. So there is a chance there.
The Wolves are very vulnerable, Joe. They are. Regardless, it doesn't matter that we're playing this well. And I've thought this for the past 6 weeks. The Wolves are the most vulnerable and the most, I would say, flawed team at the top of the West.
So explain that, Sean. Why do you think the Minnesota Timberwolves are flawed?
Because regardless of how you think the season has gone, Joe, and Joe's Joe stated what I think a lot of people, including myself, think is that even if he plays, and I don't think he will, and I agree with Joe, Carl Anthony Towns has an inability to take advantage of size down low. He'd rather play out on the perimeter and he'd rather shoot threes. And I think that's where the Wolves find themselves being very vulnerable, Joe, is that when they play big, if they have to play Rudy, Cat, and Nas Reed at the same time, they find themselves vulnerable. They're stiff. They have very little versatility with those three guys on the floor together. Um, Even with a superior athlete with in Ant, they can't take advantage of size. And I think that's where a team like the Lakers, the Kings, the Suns, the Pelicans, whoever ends up playing them can take advantage of them and floor them because they have a inferiority complex when it comes to their front court, Joe. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. They cannot take advantage of size down low, and that's where they're vulnerable. Because if they can't take advantage of size down low, they open themselves up to mismatches all over the floor. And I think ultimately that will be their Waterloo because they don't have the guts to take advantage of that size, Joe.
It's someone had brought up something on the chat, and I've thought about this. I really thought about this, and a lot of times my thinking process is the instinct thought. I've made it where I have in my life by the instinct thought. Now, I'll tell you what I mean by that. You ever meet someone and you notice little ticks, but because you want to be positive, and this is all natural, this isn't something you're thinking about even at that moment. There's ticks that start to light up. But you let it go
Mhm.
because you don't want to go into that part of your brain.
No,
You want
you
things,
like that person, or
you want
you.
to like the person.
Mhm.
You want to enjoy the moment. You want to enjoy
Mhm.
having whatever is going on with that thing. It could be anything. It
Mhm.
could be you're going out,
100%.
right? And then let's say you know this person for 6 months, and all of a sudden, as Chris Rock used to say, you meet the representative, but then eventually you meet who the people really are. You finally meet the person who they really are, and you're like, you know what, man? I remember he did this or she did this,
Mhm.
and I knew it. I knew it. But you put yourself in that mindset where like, eh. So what do I mean on that thought? Is I actually believe there's really only one team that can beat the Lakers in a 7-game series. Like 100
Denver.
Denver,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
When I think about the Celtics, the Knicks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, even the Sacramento Kings, which wouldn't be a series, it'd be probably one game, right? I don't have that feeling of like worry It's only Denver.
Mhm.
So all this talk about they're not going to make it out, they're not going to do this, they're going to do that. It's likely that that's what happens. But my instincts say if this team avoids Denver or if someone gets hurt like a Jamal Murray, and again, the factor the fact of the matter is the team, right? The Lakers being healthy too. The Lakers don't have any issues with injuries on that starting lineup, and they're locked in and they're playing 38 minutes, 40 minutes the rest of the way. I mean, the Boston Celtics in '69 were supposed to be dead in the water,
Mhm.
and they ended up doing what they did. I know that's a long time ago, and a lot of people.
Hawks should beat them. The Royals should beat them. Yeah.
It's just and maybe the realization on what and why. I'm here to be corrected, folks. We love to be corrected. Please correct us. But there's some things that that have been brought to my attention. The strength of schedule, the fact that they're playing a certain way now, the strength and schedule that they've been playing, one of the more competitive schedules, and they're 11 games over 500 on top of that. Maybe maybe there's something to hold your head up on that, and the fact that I'm watching a team not being held back by the coach finally. I know he doesn't really have a choice, but hell, he was holding them back at the beginning of the year. Maybe he figured something out. We can't sit here and say, oh crap, it was Darvin Ham at this point. Even in the losses, it's not Darvin Ham. That Indiana loss, you could see they were lethargic. They couldn't move. Anybody who's played sports, anyone who's worked, knew the body language. I knew it the first 5 minutes of that game. I said, if these guys, if the role players don't start shooting and hitting shots, I go, they're toast. And the reason why I say that is because Indiana wasn't shooting well either. Otherwise, that game would have been a blowout from tip. It would have been a blowout from tip. I was holding out hope that maybe they could muster up something where they start hitting shots, but it never came. But it was obvious. That game didn't even affect me, actually. I was on the show that night, and I was like, guys, this was we already kind of marked an L on this. We marked an L in Milwaukee, but they were able to muster that in the end, to win the game, which was great because that to me was what kept this hopeful one game playing spot alive, which is getting the 8 seed. And at this point, they've proved that they were able to sack up. You could say that AD, and I know he's supposed to do this, right? But it's so rare that you have to kind of be happy about it too. AD, I think right now is on pace of missing only 5 games.
Mhm.
Hell of a freaking run. Thank you, AD, for playing through all the crap that you played through. I shouldn't be thanking you for this. You get paid $40, $50 million a year to do this. But I think the part that I like about it is he was getting shit on unfairly. People calling him street clothes. Like he's never missed a season due to injury.
No.
Steph Curry has.
Mm-hmm.
Jamal Murray has. How come they're not called street clothes? He's never missed a season due to injury. So I think that fallacy is what exactly it is. AD came into this season saying, I'm going to ball out. And I believe he's going to be a first-team All-NBA player in the end.
He should get a handful of MVP votes.
The freaking sucking ass freaking media are not going to give him any shot at winning Defensive Player of the Year, even though I think Wembanyama should be. Do you know he has more block shots than the last 3 rookies of the year combined?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I think it was Defensive Player of the Year.
The year. Yep.
I'm sorry, not Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Defensive Player of the Year. Yep.
Okay, now usually I try. I'm one of those guys that says stop looking at the stat, stop looking at the blocks and the rebounds. But I watched this guy play 4 times. This guy's a problem. I was worried, and I'm watching the TV. I'm worried about this guy. He's 7'6", and then he's got arms that extended to 11. How the hell are
Stretch
you getting around
Armstrong,
this?
yeah.
So I don't know what he's the defensive player of the year if you're going to pick one. If you're going to continue to give awards based off of team accomplishments, you're missing the point. You guys
Yeah, individual awards are based on individual seasons and individual efforts. But narratives, Joe, you've stated this more than the rest of us have. Unfortunately, narratives matter more than facts
So
do.
you're going to give the defensive player of the year to Rudy Gobert?
Gobert, yeah. He's
Who's
gonna win it
afraid of
for
Rudy Gobert? Who's
nobody.
afraid of Rudy Gobert? I'm not
No
saying
one.
this because of AD. Honest to God, when the Lakers played Utah, when they played Minnesota, I have never, ever, all due respect to Rudy Gobert, he's going to be probably a Hall of Famer, right? But I have never feared him. I never fear LeBron going to the basket. Oh my God. I hope Rudy doesn't block the shot. Like, never. When Wembanyama's played 3 months in, I'm like, oh shit. Oh damn. Oh, can you get around them?
Yeah, you got to be worried about Vic.
What did I say about the instinct?
Rudy.
What did I say about your instinct? Your instincts will tell you so much.
Yes.
Because to me, you talk about Hall of Famers and things like this, right? We talk about Deion Sanders. People were deathly afraid to throw the ball over there. That is a Hall of Famer. That is an all-time great. When I hear the word great and GOAT, people didn't throw the ball on the left side of the field for 60 minutes. That is great. That is GOAT status. And if you're just going to base everything on stats and longevity, okay, I know there's a place there. I agree. But you have to have, in my view of greatness, you have to have that trait as a player to be anywhere near a GOAT.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, let's be honest about something, okay? And you and I can talk about this because we're a little long in the tooth when it comes to NBA viewership. When when I think of Rudy Gobert, I think of a guy who was traded to a team that already had talent around him, and he helped ascend them. But you're not talking about somebody who's like a Mark Eaton. Like Mark Eaton, when he played the center position for the Utah Jazz. Like, all due respect, even with John Stockton and Karl Malone, they sucked. They sucked. I mean, those two guys were really great, but they sucked. But when they drafted Mark Eaton, Joe, they went from losing 50 games a year to winning 50 games a year. That's somebody who should be a Hall of Famer. And he's not, by the way. He's not in the NBA Hall of Fame. He should be, but he's not. And that was a guy you feared going down the lane. I mean, he took the Showtime Lakers to 7 games. He did. He did. Because of Mark Eaton's effectiveness as a shot alterer and a shot blocker, he took the Showtime Lakers to 7 games. Now, Karl Malone and John Stockton had something to do with that, but I credit a lot of that with Mark Eaton, Joe.
I agree, and I actually still think, in some ways, that was probably the best Jazz team that they ever had with the Stockton.
Yes, yes.
They put a scare in that team and even the Dallas Mavericks
with Roy Tarpley, yeah. Like, all due respect, he had a great year, but I mean, he didn't scare me the way the Jazz did.
No, they did. The Jazz had a chance. Let's see here. Are we looking at a home run finally? Yep, Ohtani just hit a home run finally.
Nice.
Uh,
See that? Yeah.
so the at a good time too. The I think the beauty of sports is the moments, in the moments. And right now, we're watching a team that's won 8 out of 9.
Hmm.
And I want everyone to watch us understanding that we are emotional. We could go overboard on our rants. We can go overboard on what we think is going on, what we know is going on, all that stuff.
But
But
ask
I
yourself this question:
sure.
do you want to play the Los Angeles Lakers right now in the first round? They've won 8 of 9. Anthony Davis is playing the best two-way basketball of anybody since Kevin Garnett. Since Kevin Garnett, and we're going back about 15 years, but that's the truth. Do you really want to play the Los Angeles Lakers in the 7 game series? My guess is if you did a poll in the Thunder locker room and the Wolves locker room right now, they would say no. As Joe has said, the Nuggets probably don't care. They've won a title, and as Joe has said, they're probably the only team right now that wouldn't sweat a brow if they had the Lakers as an opponent. But any other team right now doesn't want to play this team in the 7 game series.
No, they don't. No, they don't. It's because you still have LeBron and AD there, and this is a star league, and the stars show up in the playoffs more often than not. It's just what it is. The uh, the being in the moment part right now is I'm in the moment so much that I'm not even really thinking about even the first round. I'm thinking about, can they win the next 5 games? I believe they can, based off how they've played and what they're capable of doing. If they do that, I really, really feel that they're going to get that eight spot. Then they avoid having to play 2 games to get into the playoffs. That is my only concern at this moment. Get in there and try to see if you can get just 1 game. It's going to be on the road, probably, but get in there, finish this thing off, and let's see if you guys can get a 7th seed and play either Oklahoma or Minnesota, and let Denver get through in a couple rounds. Let them get a little tired, and then go ahead and face Denver there. Should you make those miracle wins, which it's just very difficult looking at the reality of it all. Winning 4
Because,
road, yeah.
yeah, Joe, regardless of the vicissitudes of the plan and how people want to view that, what really matters in April and May when we're talking about professional sports is who's playing great and why. Because that's the team you don't want to play in the first round. And it doesn't matter about the records. Throw the records out. If you're playing well in April going into the playoffs, you do not want to play the team that's rolling. It doesn't matter where they are.
Agreed. Uh, Darren brought up something here that's something I definitely want to talk about. He said in '87, the greatest NBA season, there is a book about it.
Greatest NBA season of all time.
It's probably for sure in the eyes of a Laker fan, 100%. That year, the Lakers rolled through the West that year. Spurs, Golden State, Sonics, and then they beat the Celtics in 6. And of course, some amazing games and amazing memories on that. I unfortunately was a little too young to remember those games. I didn't get a chance to witness those. I was alive, but I didn't watch. I think the greatest season for the NBA is probably '84.
Mm.
And the reason why is that was the first year that the finals weren't on tape delay. and it was, I think, still the highest rated finals. If I it might no. At that time, it was, the ratings were high. I think
Mhm.
the highest rated finals, I think, is the '98 finals.
98, yeah,
Yeah.
98.
Um,
Mike and
yeah.
Jazz, yeah.
Right. And that was the beginning. That's the year that the NBA finally got out of their rut, and
Mhm.
never looked back. The NBA never had to worry about tape delays, never had to worry about the popularity anymore. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson made the NBA relevant, made the
And
NBA.
if I'm not mistaken, Joe, wasn't that the first year of the Converse
The weapons?
commercials as well?
I don't know if it was in '84, probably.
Okay. Maybe
Uh,
85, but
but
yeah.
but but what made that series in a lot of ways just like the NCAA championship in '79 is that Bird and Magic, in so many ways, are the they are the conception. I should say conception because the NBA started in 1948, but they were the they were the Arnold and twins. And those guys, this is what they birthed. They birthed the perfect specimens for this sport. And then they did what they did, and then Michael Jordan came in '85 and essentially kind of rode that wave, and then created his own tsunami wave. It's just how it kind of came. It was the perfect storm. I didn't write that down, guys. That just came out. Uh, and we are here. How many years later? We're here 40 years later, talking about the NBA being what it is and continuing to grow. Yes, we're upset about the rules. Yes, we're upset about a lot of the BS that's going on, but we're still here. We're still gonna watch, no matter how much we complain. And I'll tell you why we're gonna watch, because we're not pussies. Okay. I'm not gonna go woke or unwoke or any of that garbage. I'm gonna complain and hope that it changes stuff. Do better. Anyone can complain and run, and then nothing gets changed. Can you change this stuff? Let's be stubborn enough to change it. So, looking at the entertainment value of this season, it's starting to get entertaining here the last few weeks. We've
It
seen some
is.
amazing basketball,
It is.
and we're going to see some more here in the next 5 games.
It's
And
compelling. It's compelling
it is
basketball.
it is compelling. We can sit here and argue about the play-in all we want, but it's creating buzz. It just cheapens the regular season. That's my real main issue with it.
And Joe, to me, and this is where the rubber hits the road, is that we talk about a team on a roll. Regardless of how you feel about the plan, if a team is on a roll and they win the plan, it defers any kind of hindrance that the plan um, creates as far as momentum goes. It would completely just kill that narrative that somehow the plan would stall a team on a roll. It would.
Yes. And I believe the NBA is hoping that the Lakers get the 8th seed so that they could have a shot at possibly getting Steph and LeBron in the playoffs.
Hmm.
Because I believe Steph is, and the Warriors are going to either stay at 10 or get up to 9. And if the Lakers do win out, I believe they will get the 8. I think what will happen is Sacramento and Phoenix will be ahead, and then New Orleans will drop off because there's control there. If New Orleans loses one more game, the Lakers control the destiny of New Orleans at that point. So all they got to do is finish the year out with wins. Um, it's compelling. It is, because we're talking about it now. We're wondering. We're finally starting to figure out what could happen in terms of advancement, and it's close. The only issue is, will it burn out the guys? Will it finally burn out on them? And yeah, it's
This 2 day break comes at a fortuitous time, I must say. Though you you get a couple days off, and then you get Cleveland Saturday afternoon. You got to win that game. You got to win that game, Joe.
the tough part is it is a back to back. They're playing 3 games in 4 nights.
Mhm.
I wish they had spread that out a little bit, actually, to be honest with you. And then, of course, you got to fly to Memphis after. Well, you do have a couple days off there, so I guess it's okay. But the issue with the next 3 games is that they're playing 3 games in 4 nights, and these are all formidable teams. This is not Washington, Toronto, and Brooklyn.
No.
So that's. I mean, I know that the Cleveland game is at 12:30. It is sort of like a half a day off, maybe a little bit, because they won't play until 7 Pacific time against Minnesota the next night. But I would have preferred. I would have preferred at least a day off somewhere there. At least the 6th and the 8th, and then the 10th, and then 12th, and like a day off in between at the very least. But Lakers are going to have to earn it. So those 5 games they punted. 5 games they punted in December and January, folks. Now you got to be in the locker room and say, guys, we screwed up on that decision, even though it might not have been an official decision. But we make up for it now in the next 5 games. Let's make up for it in the next 5 games. You have to do it because you avoid playing the second game. And I think that would be more taxing than playing all out the next 5 games.
100%. I mean, do the math there. Yeah. I mean, going balls out over the next 10 days is a lot different than having to go out. You know, two out of the last three, when you need to muster up that extra oomph. And the difference between oomph and triumph, Joe, is a little bit of oomph.
That's pretty good. I haven't heard that one. My favorite one is always the difference between extraordinary and ordinary
It's extra.
is that little extra.
That's, that's pretty good. I love that.
Which I learned from. I'm sure that quote had been around for a while, but I first heard that from one of my all-time favorite comedy movies, Waiting.
Okay.
If for those of you
pretty
who
good.
haven't seen the movie Waiting, watch it. It I grew up around a lot of people who were in the service in the food service business. I never was in the food service business because I would have killed somebody. But I had everybody in my circles. They're all waiters, waitresses, servers, cooks, hostesses, the bartenders, everything. So I mean, I related to it to a certain degree. I was a bellman, I was a driver, so I was in the service business in terms of catering to people, but I just didn't serve them food. But my God, that movie, especially the end is freaking phenomenal when one of the characters goes off. I'm just going to leave it at that because you have to watch it if you can. My God, that movie is just it's a comedy masterpiece. Every single actor, even the extras that are in there, are hilarious. And I remember reading about that script that created the movie. I guess there was a guy that waited a decade to get that thing made. I mean, I'm sitting there going like, really? You guys really needed that much time to get this done? But then I start thinking about it. Ryan Reynolds don't grow on trees. Justin Longs don't grow on trees. So they actually made you have to cast that sucker the right way. Otherwise, it's going to be dead in the water.
But by the way, could you imagine anyone else being Deadpool other than Ryan Reynolds right
I
now?
never read the Deadpool comics, so you tell me.
I don't think so.
So Tony Stark, I knew about. I didn't
Mhm.
read Iron Man stuff, but I remember my buddies who were comic book guys. Tony Stark was this sarcastic, this kind of playboy type guy, right? So
Yeah.
as soon as I heard Robert Downey Jr. was going to play that guy, I'm like, dude, They
They
just
nailed it. They
they
nailed
just
it.
freaking because at that time a lot of people forget Robert Downey Jr. was still sort of coming back up from where he was,
Mhm.
and that was the movie that really just finally catapulted him. And
Mhm.
I'm still that's still the one in the Marvel universe
Yeah,
movie.
Christian Bale, maybe, but I think he.
Oh wow! I didn't think about that one actually. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. If you factor in the whole American Psycho thing, oh
Mhm.
yeah, that might have worked. That might have worked. That might have worked.
Yeah, other than him, yeah, Robert Downey Jr. was the guy you slot into that role.
There's a scene. Speaking of that same year, obviously Christian Bale was playing Batman in The Dark Knight. Oh wait, one of the greatest years of movies too, by the way, at least for
Mhm.
superhero movies. There's a scene in The Dark Knight where the server comes to Bruce Wayne while he's talking to Harvey and his girl, and he goes, "Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave." And he goes, and he starts writing his check. He's like, "I'm buying this hotel." And the way he said it, I'm like, "That's Patrick Bateman. That's not Bruce Wayne."
I know
So,
exactly what
and I'm
scene you're
like,
talking about.
I was in the theater. I was like, "That's Patrick Bateman. That's not Bruce Wayne."
Nope. No, it's Patrick Bateman, all right.
It's hard enough to be a legendary character once, but twice, and then you have Al Pacino, who's got like 8. I was looking at characters from Al Pacino. I remember I was sitting there. I'm like, "Hey, Christian Bale's Patrick Bateman. Christian Bale's Batman. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man." Right? Like you got all these guys that have one, if they're lucky, to. Then I
Michael
start getting
Corleone, Tony
Yeah, then I look at it.
Montana,
I'm like Al Pacino. I'm like, dude, Al Pacino's the
Lefty.
yeah. I'm like Al Pacino's the greatest movie star we've ever seen. I go, there's no way
100%.
anybody would beat that guy. Seriously, I'm like Richard Roma and Hannah from Heat. I mean, it was like a line of iconic characters. So I don't know. Again, we're to get back to the subject here. I'm trying to think after the season's over. There's a lot of stuff brewing right now. And the way the NBA is structured right now, it's impossible to field a team that's got good starting players as well as 2 or 3 good bench guys.
Mhm.
Even Denver, even Boston, who are
Mhm.
favored to meet in the finals, are although Boston, according to the numbers, they're actually not bad. But what will that mean when it gets into when playoff time? That's the question.
They're really gonna miss somebody like Marcus Smart when we get deep, Joe. They're really gonna miss him.
Are they really though?
Mhm.
Because he couldn't hit the backboard
He
with a.
couldn't, but his defensive intensity and just his ability to focus everybody in the huddle is going to be sorely missed by them.
So they sacrificed that defensive tenacity at the end of those games for now, hopefully getting the shots that they can get, being that Porzingis is the replacement.
Right.
Will that work?
That's what they're betting on. I think it'll fall short personally because I think he sacrificed too much heart for too much.
I know it's a regular season game. I know you're going to lose some games you should win. But when I watched the Lakers roll the Celtics in Boston, I saw Porzingis turn into a daisy in that game.
Yep.
He was getting roughed up down low, and he turned into a flower. And if you think that's not going to happen in the playoffs, even worse, what are you going to do when that happens?
Because remember something, Joe. Even though he'd missed a shot or two, the Boston Celtics didn't trade Dennis Johnson.
No.
They wouldn't. They wouldn't. Larry Bird would have choked Red Auerbach out if he ever decided to trade Dennis Johnson.
But at what point did they, were they going to continue to do the same thing over and over again and still have the same problem? They are. Would you say that this is the best Celtic team, at least in the regular season, that you've seen for the Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum era?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But I would also echo what our esteemed panelist Alan says is that the Celtics have a lot of weak sauce in that huddle. And Marcus Smart was willing to get into people's face and know who had the nuts and who didn't. And now you're sacrificing that for Porzingis, who you hope is healthy, right, Joe? I mean, that's what this lingers on. Is that if Porzingis is healthy and he makes the shots,
Can he stay healthy for 4 series
that's
with
that's a
that kind of grind?
that's a
And
tough ask.
will the mileage the last, what, 4 seasons, 5 seasons with Tatum and Brown? So you guys know I finished this. This was three
That's
quarters full.
awesome, Joe. You finished the red.
I said I would. Salute.
Cause it's true. He has a mental block too. He's got to get past that himself. So that's three blocks he got to get through. Can he hit the shots? Can he stay healthy? And can he get past the mental blocks that he's going
Well,
to face?
Darren made a good point. So they were able to get Drew Holiday to at least massage that a little bit, right? But is Drew Holiday enough? Is he got enough in the tank to?
So forget the coaching for a second, Joe. In the 7-game series right now, who would you favor given the shot makers, the Bucks or the Celtics?
Oh, Celtics.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So Milwaukee's suffering from something going on in there. Something's off.
I agree.
Something's off, and I think a lot of it is.
I agree, but I think guys like Dame and Chris Middleton, more so than Giannis, can help that team overcome the lack of ball. I think the lack of stability that you're not getting from the locker room and the coaching staff. Because Dame's done it before. He did it twice in Portland. He had inferior coaching and an inferior roster, and he still managed to take a team to the next round.
But that's the issue, Sean, is he's not all there. You heard his quote a few weeks back where he feels like he's bored.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Yep.
supposed to be his chance to win a championship.
Fair enough.
Why is he bored? He wasn't going to win a championship, Portland. He has a chance
Yeah.
to win one in Milwaukee.
And I mean that it speaks volumes because I gotta be honest with you. Staring at trees versus staring at cows, Joe. I'm not sure what the difference is there between. And like, look, I love you know the pastoral scenery more as much as the next person, right? But the difference between that green in Oregon versus staring at a dairy field in Milwaukee. I mean, you're bored, really? I get it, and that's a fair point.
I got to drop the hammer on this one a little. I know that Milwaukee isn't the best place to be at, but if I'm making $40 million a year,
I don't care what I'm looking
you
at,
damn
right?
well better believe if you don't want to buy a house there, I can rent something for 6 months to 9 months, have exactly what I'd have back home, and I'd have a jet on standby for my kids to come see me and my family to come see me at any time. I mean, really, is this really what's bothering you? To me, it's title time, baby.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Joe. I mean, I haven't been there. I haven't seen the city, but we've all seen pictures of it. It looks like an average city. It doesn't look like, you should be, as Joe said, what Dame said, bored.
It's
Bored?
it's it this is your chance to win a
Your
championship.
chance, your only chance,
But
pretty
I
much.
also think there's something else going on that actually isn't related. I think Dame, in a lot of ways, is the red herring in this issue. I think there's something going on with Giannis, and I noticed that this is the year where um, Giannis has been a little bit more on the negative side.
Hmm.
I think celebrity, I think pressure is finally getting to him. I don't know if he's standoffish. I don't know if he cares about the organization doing even all this. Like the organization, to me, even before the Dame trade, I'm like, dude, these guys are doing everything for you. This is Milwaukee. This isn't Miami or LA. These guys are doing everything to make you happy. And I hope he's not being,
Ungrateful. Yeah.
ungrateful there.
Yeah.
They're at least trying. Now, if it doesn't
Hmm.
work out, that's fine. But they're trying, and I think Milwaukee and the ownership need to deserve their props.
Yeah, 100%, Joe. It kind of reminds me a lot of what Alex Anthopoulos did with the Jays in 15, 16. It didn't work out, but he tried. He tried. He got David Price. He got Tulowitzki
Sure.
from Colorado. He tried. He tried to put the right pieces around the core he had to try and, you just ran into a buzzsaw that was the Kansas City Royals bullpen. But yeah, I mean, same thing with Milwaukee. I mean, they've tried, even with the kind of instability that they've had with John Hammond leaving and going to south to Orlando. You still have John Horst trying to do his damnedest to field contender in Milwaukee, and I mean, we were all kind of shocked when Adrian Griffin got the boot out the door, Joe. Even with a contemplative kind of humdrum ho hum guys, not really down with the first year head coach. And Joe, you had said it before the season started. You thought that something was amiss there. That you hired some first year rookie head coach. Something's going on there.
It's
So
hard. Yeah, it's hard. And they had to fire Budenholzer last year because of his stubbornness.
yes,
The
but to not bring in a vet and to bring in a
I don't know
rookie,
why they didn't bring in Nick Nurse. That was a really bad
it
miss.
all the pieces fit, right?
He was
Yeah,
perfect for that team. Because Philly right now, if Embiid doesn't get hurt, would have been a threat.
they would have.
And Adrian Griffin, in a hilarious way, they were 30-13 when he got fired.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was like a
and I
Blatt
think,
situation all over
and
again.
since Doc took over, I think they're 16-13.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
just a little over 500,
Yeah, I'm just
and he might not last the year either, Joe. I mean, if they get bounced in the first round here, I mean, it might be curtains for Doc.
it was we never really got information on what was going on with Adrian Griffin. It started out bad because he bounced Stouts, right?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Did we ever find out why?
Yes. So what had happened was there was a bit of a kerfuffle amongst the coaching staff, and Adrian Griffin didn't really like the approach that Stotts was taking. So instead of pu- putting him aside and talking to him one on one, he decided to berate him in front of the entire team and the coaching staff. And look, I understand if you're a rookie and you're in that leadership position and you want to establish your culture and your dominance and your what you want the team to abide by, right? I understand that, Joe. But you also have to have tact and understand Terry Stotts has been a head coach before. He's been an assistant before. Terry's been a player. You can bring him aside one on one, and that's the best approach to have with a veteran and a man is to say, look, man, this is the way I kind of want to approach things with the team. It's my first time as a coach. This is what I want to do. But instead, he decided he was going to blast him in front of everybody. And Terry didn't respond positively, Joe. And regardless of what you and I think, I think both you and I, as men, would basically kind of have the same um, response as Terry Stotts did. Yeah, like, yo, Adrian, I understand it's your first time as a head coach, but you need to understand that I'm a man too. And you need to have a better approach when it comes to responding to how you don't like certain things. And Terry quit. He resigned, Joe. And that was a huge blow, I thought, to Griffin's leadership with the team because it's almost as if your leadership skills are not responding to in a positive way, and that can really have a detrimental effect in a locker room. Just being around men. And I can speak to it in sports, right? But as somebody who's been around other men, right, in the workforce, if you approach situations the wrong way, it can have a ripple effect.
And it's even worse in the NBA usually because that you have players who are making 50, 60 million a year playing for a coach that's making five.
Right,
Yeah.
and they see this.
And that's always been the issue. And it's not like the NFL where you have a Mike Tomlin or a Bill Belichick where the coach can have some cachet there where they can dominate even the best players. The NBA has always been a player league, even before this next level of player league. Bloodhound asked a good question about the Lakers. Is do the guys being up and down this year reflect on the coaching? Yes, yeah, you could say that,
I think it's 80-20, Bloodhound. Yeah, I
but
really
I think
do.
I think what we wanna focus on right now is Darvin Ham is not screwing this up, and a lot of times that's all it is. And I'll give you an example. I know this is probably a bad example, but I remember after the Lakers won in 2009, and this was, folks, 2009, if you don't remember, was the most stressful season as a Laker fan, at least for me. How stressful? Well, the Lakers had to go 7-7 against the Houston Rockets without Yao Ming for most of that series. For some weird reason, for 2 games, they got blown out by the Rockets on the road. I don't know why. It just happened. And of course, they lost the first game at home. Uh, so they get out of that. And then they face the Denver Nuggets, the best Nuggets team at that point that had ever been, and Carmelo's best team. If Kobe doesn't go God mode in '09, Carmelo Anthony's sitting with a championship in Denver. He never goes to New York. History changes, right?
Yep.
And there was one game that changed that. Game 3 in Denver. Lakers win game 1, they lose game 2, they go to Denver, and I'm scared to shit that entire game. I am, as crazy as this sounds, I was more nervous for game 3 of that Denver series than I was for game 7 in
I know.
2020.
I was kind of chewing on nails that
I
fourth
was
quarter, Joe.
still the most nervous I've ever been. The only, and it's weird. It's weird that I was nervous for the Denver Bronco game too. That same year, I don't know what it was about Denver. I know why, but it's just weird how your body reacts, right? Because they beat the Indianapolis Colts, the Steelers did, and then they go to Denver. You beat Denver and Jerome's going to Detroit. I felt at that time, if you face Carolina or Seattle, they're going to win. Denver was Denver. Denver's always been an issue, climate and elevation, and it's Denver. It's on the road.
Yep.
Did you blow your nut against like all that stuff, right? So I basically don't ever. I barely could eat that week to watch the Denver AFC Championship game, and then as far as the game 3 against the Nuggets, it was just I was so scared of that game because I really, really deep down knew if they're going to win this series, they have to win game 3. Have to win game 3 after they just lost game 2. Actually, they got beat pretty good in game 2. It wasn't really that competitive. So I was worried. And then, of course, we saw what happened. And it went the way it did. And here we are talking about it 15 years later, which is just nuts to me, the fact that it was 15 years later. Let's see here. What else are we talking about? I think he averaged 38 in that series. Kobe was clutch in that series. Yeah, even George Karl, as much as he hated the Lakers and Kobe, he did mention that God came in and did something in that game.
Well, yeah, Joe, I mean, again, it's a testament to Ron's defense on Melo. Again,
Ron wasn't on that team.
In the 08 team, yeah, my bad.
That was the Trevor Ariza series.
Yeah.
Trevor Ariza twice ended
But
the
do
game.
you remember that 09 game, that regular season game? It was shortly before the playoffs where it was the Lakers and the Nuggets, and it was kind of a test of what was to come. And Ron shut Melo down. He had 5 steals in that game. He really managed to contain him. And I think that ended up being the difference, is that these big, small forwards, these 6'8", 240, 270 guys, weren't able to get that steam, that momentum to drive into the lane, because they really were. Ron was a deterrent. He really
You're talking
was.
about Ron Artest?
Yes.
Ron was not on the Lakers in 09.
In 08, no, but I'm talking about the 09 game. There's a regular season game that's very, very important, and here I'll pull it up for everybody.
So you're talking about the 09-2010 season?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So pull that up, and we'll keep going here. Their current situation right now, I'm going to get back to this, is what do you attribute their consistency now? Like, what are they doing differently now than because we're talking about the coaching, how coaching is reflected. And I'll get back to my point. I think I jumped too much. So at the end of the 09 season, Phil Jackson said he barely did anything, which is total bullshit, by the way. But he said his assistants helped him, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So let's look at Darvin Ham. Let's look at Darvin Ham for what will be soon here, the whole season. What's his grade at this point? Is it simply just it's easy to just run with what he's running with now because that's all he has? Starting 5? Did it motivate him a certain way? Did injuries factor in early in the year that much? Were they really trying to save up LeBron and AD? Like, they didn't really save them up. So can't be that. They still played a full season without getting injured. So what is it? And will Darvin Ham be able to do something, probably not offensively, but defensively, adjustment-wise, to make a difference in the playoffs, should they make it? That's
a good question.
That's the question, and there's silence because we don't know, right? We're looking at the standings right now. As of right now, we are looking at the Lakers sitting in the 9th seed, separated by 2 losses only with the 3 teams above us.
Well, for fortuitously, they've won the season series against the teams they're supposed to win against. So they got to win out. I think if they can. So we got 10 games left. If they go, or 9 games left.
5.
Oh, excuse. If they go 4-1, I think they grab a 6 to an 8 spot.
4-1?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Because you got to remember, Phoenix plays New Orleans once more. New Orleans plays the Clippers. They play the Warriors. I think the Kings. I think the only team that they don't play is the Warriors. So everybody plays against each other right now. I mean, this is a tete-a-tete now. And I think you're right, Joe. I think that last game is going to be huge. I think that's going to be potentially a 6 to 8 spot game. If somehow the Lakers beat the Pelicans, they own the season series against them. They own the season series against the Suns. They can eclipse both of them and knock Phoenix and New Orleans potentially into a playing game against one another.
Darren, the Lakers are not going to miss the playoffs if it was simply 1 through 8 like it used to be. I really believe the Lakers would have won all 5 games to guarantee themselves the 8. And like you said, Sean, a lot of these teams are playing against each other. So if Phoenix beats New Orleans and the Lakers win out, the Lakers get the 8 seed. At least an 8 seed.
This something, Joe, for all their trash talk, this is where the rubber hits the road for the Kings because they play. Here's their next 5 games. They play the Knicks, the Celtics on a back-to-back. Then they play the Nets. Then they play the Thunder. Then they play, I believe it's the Pelicans or the Clippers. So they've got a hard road over their next 6 games. I think the Lakers can eclipse them, pass them, if they continue on this roll. And if that's the case, even if the Kings swept the Lakers, who gives a flying blank? If the Lakers are 1 game up on the Kings at the end of the year, that's all that matters. So the Lakers could have a potential advantage here where you have a season series against the Pels, you have a season series against the Suns, and you catch the Kings when they're injured and wounded at the most opportune time.
The problem with the Kings is we don't have the tiebreaker there, which means they're really down 3. They're not going to make up 3 games in 5. I just don't see that happening. The Lakers have to win the rest of their games to probably guarantee themselves the 8. So, Darren, to answer your question, yes, as of right now, they'll be out of the playoffs. But I believe,
the big bugaboo is this. Well, now we're in the Wednesday. If they lose to the Knicks, and by the way, the Knicks need to win in the worst way, Joe, because they're down OG, they're down Mitchell Robinson, and they're down Julius Randle. Those 3 guys are done for the year. So the Knicks need this game bad.
Well, the Knicks need it because it could be the difference between home court and not.
And and if they've got to play 4 games in Orlando, they're not beating the Magic, especially if Randall and Robinson are out. There's no way you're stopping Banchero 4 out of 7. So they really need this game.
Jay, it doesn't matter. Cleveland, back-to-back, Minnesota, it doesn't matter. If the Lakers want to guarantee themselves in this run, because I do believe that the Pelicans are going to lose 1 more game besides the Laker game. You win the next 5 games, and you guarantee yourself at least having to play just one game to get into the playoffs. And if you win that game, whether you're the 7th or the 8th, even, you're gonna get the 7th seed. And that 7th seed's probably gonna be Minnesota or Oklahoma City. I'm gonna take a guess it's gonna be Oklahoma City. That's the first steps. There's nothing else to do. Now, the problem with that seed, the problem with these teams that the Lakers would play on this run, should it go beyond just the first round, because of expansion, because of relocation, unfortunately, the Lakers have another thing that they have to worry about. Let's say they play Oklahoma City or Minnesota. They got to fly halfway across the damn country. They're not playing Phoenix or, what would have been Seattle or Vancouver, right? They got to
Yeah,
go
we saw what happened last time the Lakers played OKC when it was a 1-8.
It's difficult. They're going to have to not only play every single series the first 2 times on the road, they got to fly to freaking BFE, either in Oklahoma City or Minnesota, because what could happen is Minnesota could end up winning their series in the first round if we face Oklahoma City.
And by the way, you know what's screwed up about that, Joe? Is their big airport isn't even in Oklahoma City. It's in Stillwater. You got to drive north.
I know this. I drove
Yeah,
because of
I
that.
know.
I had to
You
go
got
to
to drive
freaking
north
Texas
to
go to
Stillwater.
I had to go to freaking Dallas Fort Worth to drive 2.5, 3 hours to get to Broken Bow or whatever the hell it was over there to go visit my brother-in-law's new cabin out there in Oklahoma, which was great, by the way, folks.
Beautiful, yeah, but
Yeah.
still,
It's the middle of nowhere. And again, yeah, they're rich. Yeah, they have chartered planes and all that, but the body
the
doesn't
body's
know.
the body. Yeah,
The body doesn't understand money, doesn't understand time zone. Look, folks, I'm sure you've watched these on all the Instagram and TikToks and all that. There's 100 billion nutritional exercise gurus that are probably just being
it was.
bombarded on your
You know
phone.
what it was like, Joe? It was like back in the '90s when you had to have a back-to-back against Seattle and Portland. You knew you were coming back 1-1.
Yes.
You were lucky. You were going to be lucky if you won one of those games, and you were fortunate enough to know that would happen. You didn't want to go down 0-2, but you knew that the best you were going to do was 1-1.
I think it's
And I
hilarious.
think
I think it's hilarious that you bring that up. The Lakers were 0-4 in 2002 against the Sonics. They lost every game to the Sonics that year. By the way, for those of you who don't remember, that's the 3-peat team. Yeah. That team started 16-1. Mm-hmm. So yes, the Pacific Northwest, the middle of America, Oklahoma,
harsh.
Denver.
It's harsh to West Coast teams.
It's brutal to the body. Why? And I'll again, I'm not trying to get all health guru on here.
No, go on.
But just experience, and I'm sure everybody knows this. It's not something that people don't know. The difference between sleeping at 9 and waking up at 5 versus sleeping at midnight and waking up at 8 are light years of difference. Human beings are meant to do certain things based off the sun and night and day. It's just what it is.
It's what Phil Jackson used to call circadian rhythms.
Bill Snyder, K-State, used to make his players sit on the other side of the plane where the sun wasn't shining in. That's a guy that's read a few things about health, reaction, all that stuff. So with that, I highly recommend, for those of you who give a damn, go find a nutritionist, go do some tests, allergy tests, see what you're supposed to be eating, what you're not supposed to be eating. But there's one thing that's all the same for everybody. You sleep early and wake up early, you're going to do better for your body.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Do something, right? But again, Sean, I want to thank you for being here tonight. Again, we're going to make this a habit. I know you're going to be back on post-game here soon. Folks, I'm sorry I missed the nightcap last night. Again, my schedule's starting to get very, very crazy. So This isn't going to be something, I'm not going to miss things, but I'm going to have to be kind of adaptable, and I hope you guys can too. Everything is for a purpose. At some point in this path that we're going, this thing will continue to get bigger. The production value will get bigger, but there needs to be a certain resource I'm building on right now to get to that. But I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Again, the Lakers won tonight, 125-120, ending the 6-game road trip 5-1, much better than I thought they'd be. Good for them. They got 5 more games to finish the regular season. Hopefully they finish this off. They run the table here so that they can guarantee themselves to play just 1 game in the play-in. If they can somehow jump that, get to the 6th, that would be great. But I'm not counting on it because everybody else is playing hard as well. They're probably going to win as well. However, thank you for being here tonight. Sean, again, thank you for being here tonight. I drank a third of a bottle of wine for y'all. Feeling pretty good.
I downed a bottle of red before the show, Joe.
And
So
that was the motivation. That was the motivation. You said red. I went red tonight. We went through 2 hours pretty quick. Thank you all from Australia, East Coast, the Philippines, all over the world. We love you. Keep watching. Until next time, we'll see you next time.